Hi everybody, it's Josh here from JDG. I just wanted to get in touch with an update on the progress of the Renters Reform Bill. You may have seen various things in the media, so I just wanted to give you some information on the key talking points that have come up. The bill has now finished its third reading in the Commons, following 200 plus amendments that were put forward during the report and committee stage, and it's now going on up to the House of Lords for its final scrutiny. Given this was a key manifesto item for the Conservatives and has great cross-party support, it's very likely that it's going to go through without any major challenges in the Lords. Following that, it will then get royal assent and the bill will move into law. Now, this doesn't mean that everything in the bill suddenly becomes enforced from that day. What we're going to see next is something called the commencement date. That is when the law applies to new tenancies, and then it's usually followed sometime later by the backstop date, where it applies to all tenancies. The bill is now available on the government website if you fancy some light reading, and I have been working with industry experts and solicitors to get their understanding on what this means as it stands at the moment. Now, the bill will essentially break tenancies into three main classes once the bill is passed, and basically that's going to be based on certain key dates. So, following the commencement date, the first class of tenancy will be new tenancies. Any new tenancy that is made following that date will follow the new laws, such as the periodic assured tenancies, no Section 21s, and new rules surrounding rent increases, just to name a few. So, for example, if the commencement date was on the 1st of October, all new tenancies from the 1st of October would be under those new laws. Pretty straightforward, that one. Now, the second class of tenancy will be those which are currently on a fixed term when the commencement date comes into force. Now, these tenancies would follow the old laws as per their assured short-hold tenancies during the course of their fixed terms. But as soon as the fixed term ends, or the backstop date comes into force, they then follow the new laws. So, for example, if you started a 6-month fixed term on the 1st of September, the commencement date then comes into force on the 1st of October, the old laws and the AST would stay in force until the end of February the following year for that tenancy, and it would then follow the new law on the 1st of March when its fixed term had ended. So again, relatively straightforward on that front. Now, contrary to confusing reports in the media surrounding the delay in the banning of Section 21s and the need for court reforms, it appears from the experts' interpretation of the bill that both of these first two classes of tenancy would have the banning of Section 21 enforced either immediately or once their fixed term had ended, regardless of any court reforms that might be required. Now, the third class of tenancy is a bit more complicated. So that is the ones that already exist and they're already on that periodic rolling tenancy at the point of the commencement date. Now, it looks like these are only going to move onto the new laws at the point in which the backstop date comes into force, as we mentioned before. And it's widely believed that this will not be until the courts have been reformed to handle the huge increase in court hearings, given that every possession case using a Section 8 requires a hearing if the tenants do not vacate, as opposed to the Section 21 process, which has an accelerated possession. Interestingly, the bill has had an amendment put in that sets out the review time for the court reforms as being at the decision or discretion of the Lord Chancellor. And there's no specific guidance on when this could be, not 6 months, 12 months down the line, it's just at their discretion. So we could be talking months, even years before the initial assessment and recommendations are done, and let alone the time and money it's actually going to take to reform the courts themselves. So in a nutshell, it seems that any periodic tenancies that are already in place at the commencement date are just going to continue as is indefinitely. Realistically though, the government needs to move quickly on the reforms to avoid an even bigger backlog than the courts already have been facing. Because just through the natural ending of tenancies, periodic tenancies, as people move house, over time most tenancies are going to fall into that first class of tenancy being new ones, and therefore will follow the Renters Reform Bill regardless. So eventually we're going to end up with everyone going down that route, whether the courts are reformed or not. A couple of other notable things that have come up are a new ground that is going to be introduced for student landlords. Now, this has been discussed quite a bit. There's a lot of worry about sort of fixed terms and things with students. Now, the ground itself does not appear to be aimed at HMOs or even student lets themselves. It's actually aimed at the actual tenant being a full-time student. Landlords will be able to serve the notice at the actual start of the tenancy, so for example at the start of an academic year, with the notice requiring the tenant to vacate between certain dates. I believe it's sometime in June up to the end of September. It sets out that expectation from the start for your student tenants and gives you a bit of control there and a bit of reliability and certainty. So we don't have much more information on this at the moment, but it does indicate some more certainty for student landlords, because I know I have been asked about that quite a bit, but unfortunately until this point didn't have much of an answer. Now, another concern was that of short tenancies following fixed terms being abolished. There was worries that tenants could just be in for a month and leave, which would cause problems. I think first it's important to realise that people do not like moving house. It's very stressful, so that was unlikely to happen anyway. However, there has been some more clarity surrounding notice periods. Specifically, the tenant must give a minimum of 2 months' notice to vacate the property, and that notice cannot expire within the first 6 months of the tenancy. When it was granted. So whilst they could serve this on day one of their tenancy, their legal responsibilities can't end before the end of that first 6 months. So it does give an element of that sort of fixed term 6-month tenancy that we're used to. There have been many other amendments and discussions, but for now we'll leave it at those main points that we've just sort of discussed. Now, as the experts have more time to interpret the bill, like I said, it's available if you fancy reading it. I'll no doubt be able to provide you with more information, and I expect at some point we'll start to see some guidance documents coming out from the government, but please don't hold me to that because we know what they're like. Please do bear in mind that the above information is based on interpretation that we have seen in the bill so far, and whilst the experts that we work with are super clued up about our industry, as we all know, things are subject to change, but hopefully it gives you a bit more clarity on all sorts of different things we've seen in the media. On the topic of change, there is speculation on a general election coming up and a potential change in power. On one hand, this may help push the bill further and over the line quicker, given that it was a manifesto item for the current government. But on the other hand, I think even if it doesn't get through and there is a change in power, there is strong cross-party support for this bill. So there is some iteration of it coming down the line very soon. I will, of course, keep you up to date as best I can, but if you do have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask, and I'll do my best to answer them or find someone who can give us answers. Keep watching, and thank you for watching today. Goodbye.